Okay, I had to get the camera set up. I know it's a little crooked, but I'll walk around it and you can kind of get an idea for size comparison. It is sitting on wooden blocks right now, which is close to your height. Actually, it'd be about a ½ inch higher off the ground, but you probably can't tell from this video. But keep in mind, I'm only 5'3" tall, so that'll give you an idea of how big it is. So it's 18 3/4 deep and about 6 foot 2 inches wide. This is 43 inches off the lower frame. Then, like I said, we're going to have another 10 or 12 inches on the top for the lid, the cover, vent cover. We'll start the arc down here, maybe about an inch or so off the bottom, and we'll break it off around those insulators. And when the arc breaks, it's going to make a big upside down U or letter V, which I'll show you here shortly in another video. And I don't want that coming in contact with that frame, so I think we're pushing it, breaking the arc off around those upper insulators. But you can see how big this thing is. And I'll show you here in the garage how I was going to set up the rods. So over here, I know you're going to toggle bolt these tubes to the wall. So you need to let me know about how far up this tube face you want me to drill for that, or you can drill that tubing on site when you install it. This tube here, from what I understand, is where you want to come into it and run your 240 volt supply lines down through this tube. And then it's drilled in the lower frame down here, and it'll take the wires underneath. And we can go anywhere underneath here and bring the wires back up to power this side of the Jacob's ladder. All this bracing, it's all temporary. So I'll do some more videos and I'll break down this section, set it up back in the garage. We'll fire this up. I'll do a couple experiments with the rods. You'll better understand why I don't want to break that arc any higher than that. And I'll show you all the components I got and how I want to lay them out. This back side goes against the wall, which I think we agreed on that you're going to paint this side black, and we're going to put this up against the wall. You'll have polycarbonate on this face. This face here, which is going to be a removable panel, and polycarbonate here, here, and on this face. On the back, what I want to do is put in ½ inch wood back here and then mount all my components to it. And we can do a nice, neat wiring job. Otherwise, I can clutter them up in a small package and put them right on top of the line reactor, but I don't think it'll look that good. So your insulator mounts up top are 5 inches wide, and they're at the same height as your 6 inch wide shelf. It's centered up. These insulators here, I'll show you. Well, let's see if I can take one out. So the insulators are an actual 6 inches. So that should match up with your 6 inch thick shelf. They're pretty big. They're 6 inch diameter, 10.5 or 11 inches tall. Anyway, I'm going to break this down, put it in the garage, and we'll fire up this section. You can see it work. Okay, Elliot, here's an idea of how the final construction will be. This is a model I drew, 3D. This here is the square tube frame, which is already made. This is your polycarbonate, and here's 1.5 inch wide flat bar will be the trim. We'll put in the stainless steel button head bolts, space them nice and even. Now this is your front removable panel. This is just a cross section. Let me rotate this. So when you remove this panel, first of all, it has the same flat bar trim as the rest of it with the button head bolts where the arrow's at. There's your polycarbonate. Because this is removable and we don't want it being flimsy because it will then crack along the drill holes, bolt holes, we then have 1.5 by 1.5 steel angle. This will go around the whole inner perimeter of it. So that'll be your removable panel. Just to show you how it's going to go together. Next, let me scroll over and give you an idea how I'm going to build the top lid and vent cover. So let me find it. So here's your rod case, and I was going to make this and these two covers out of sheet metal. We'll powder coat them to match the trim work. Then it's flat on the back side where it goes against the wall, as you can see. Up in here, this is where the hot air will escape, and this is where we're going to, this and underneath these panels is where we'll put the thermal insulation. I'm going to run a threaded rod from here down into here and tie into the framework, and then we'll put a cap nut up here. Something that kind of matches the button head bolts. Whatever, it's minor. But that's how I was going to make the lid. And I'm going to do another video of the lower frame, and then I'll come back into this program and show you exactly how I'm going to make your toe kick. Get the registered fit and the magnets. We'll go over that. First, you need to see the framework up close down in the garage so you can better understand this. Alright, Elliot, here's your Jacob's ladder roughly assembled out here so you can see it. This is just the main frame of it, and I set it up so you can kind of picture it better. There's a lid and a vent cover that goes on top. That's going to add another 10 to 12 inches to it, and that should get you at your 137-inch height. So everything's just tack welded together. These diagonal braces are just temporary. After all the welding's done and it's cooled off, then that'll get all cut off. I don't have the leveling feet on it right now, so it's sitting on wood blocks. So on the far right is your line reactor coil. You got your transformer, and then your rod case on the left. The rod case is going to bolt on and off. So right where the wood blocks are placed are where the leveling feet go. In the bottom corners you can see I've got a 1/4-inch plate. I'm going to weld a nut on the bottom, and then you can run the feet up and down and then put a jam nut on the top. And when I take this apart and get it back in the garage, we'll go over all the detail. So I'm going to set the camera down and walk by it. You can get an idea of the actual size of this thing. So hold on a minute. All right, here we are back in the garage. I've got it broken down here. I'll show you what I've got. We'll go over some of the details. Here's your lower frame. I took the rod case framework off. It's where your transformer and line reactor and all your electrical electronic components will go in there. These bolts that you see welded on the corners, those were temporary. Those were just to line up the tubes for the rod case. Those are going to get cut off, and I'm putting in 1-inch square tubes, I don't know, maybe 6 inches tall or 4 inches tall, welded on there so the 1.25 inch square tube will slide over it, and then we can bolt it in there and get a nice clean look. So those will get cut off. Here's your pieces for the rod case. Right there's where your insulator mounts. That's your shelf height. This one, as you'll notice, has a cross member in it. I'll explain why. The one with a cross member goes up against the transformer case, and as you can see right here, it'll be right above it. So when our plastic comes down this side of the rod case and our plastic comes across the transformer case, I can put in a piece of angle in that corner. I've got something attached to the edge of both pieces of polycarbonate. I'll lay steel angle on top of that, and then we'll space and put in the stainless steel button head bolts. So this whole thing is going to be trimmed out. The only bit of this square tubing you're going to see is on the inside of the case. Everything on the exterior, you won't see it, which is the reason why I didn't miter any of these joints. I left the tubes open. It'll never be seen. Okay, so here's where that piece of the right-hand side of the rod case, lays up against these two vertical pieces of the transformer case. That hole I've got cut there in the frame, that's to run our wire down. So your 240 volt in will come down that tube and go down in there, and it'll take us underneath the base. You can see these corners, everywhere there's wood blocks, that's where the leveling feet are going to go. These two strips here, you can see 4 dots, that's bolt holes that have to be drilled. That'll bolt the line reactor down. The transformer is just going to sit on here, and it'll sit on these 2 rails. Then here's your insulator, your lower insulator bolt holes. Alright, so here's what I was wanting to do is, let me get closer. All these cross members in here, you can see they are dropped down a 1/2 inch below the surface of this square tube right here. Because what I was going to do is take 1/2 inch thick plywood, like a Baltic birch, something that's got a real smooth finish, and I'm going to template out the inner part of this frame and lay that wood down on all these cross members. So then the finished surface of the wood will be level with this. So this will all be level across, and I'll set it in here so that the steel frame, this part will be exposed and painted, and then the wood will be painted to match it, to come up to it. This tubing has a radius corner. It's real small, so I'm going to take a router and radius the wood all the way around. So the steel frame will almost look like a picture frame around your wood. To do the bottom piece of wood in 2 pieces. Where the rod case meets the transformer case is a full 1-inch square tube. This is where the wood's going to stop, and it will pick up and start again. And do it over here. So where the transformer sits on these, let's see, these 2 rails here, it'll sit on the wood. Well, the wood's a 1/2 inch thick. I'm going to take a router and route a circle out of it 1/4 inch deep, so that transformer will sit in the same spot. The bolts for the line reactor will bolt it through the wood. The bolts for the insulators will come up through that steel plate, through the wood, so the insulators will be right on the wood. Let me stand back here and see if you can take in everything I just told you. Right there on the right, we'll stop the wood. On the left, we'll pick it up again. Then we'll stop it right inside that rail. Should give it a nice clean look. Now, out here on the end, on the left, foreground, background, steel tube. I'm going to put in little short pieces of angle iron clips, weld them in, and we'll screw up through the bottom end of the wood. That'll keep the wood from sagging whenever we have these long spans. So those will be placed in several spots. So this is here's our back side. All right, now, I guess we can talk about the toe kick. If you'll notice down here, you'll see short pieces of angle welded off the bottom. See, there's 4 across the front, and you got these 2 on the ends. So this short end and the other end, those will be screwed on and secured. The one across the front will be removable with magnets. We'll get a registered fit like you want. It'll always go back in the same spot. If someone kicks the end of it, it's not like they're going to knock it off. You literally have to grab the end of this thing and pull it back. The toe kick, it will rest on the carpet no matter how much you got to level it. You know, if your floor is real bad. The toe kick is going to be 1/2-inch wood wrapped in a light gauge brush finish stainless steel. And I've got a sheet metal company. They're making that up for me. Since they got a shear and a brake, it's not worth my hassle since I'm not equipped to do that. Everything on this Jacob's ladder is all TIG welded. The only thing that's stick welded on were these temporary diagonal supports. I didn't want to waste the gas on that since they're all going to get taken off and ground down. You can see some more of the pieces of angle sticking down for your toe kick. Alright, I'm going to show you something else on the bottom here. Let me grab a scrap piece of material. Sure could use a cameraman today. I'm doing all this by myself. So this square tube, we'll go here. That's for your toe kick. That's set in about 1.25 inches. Then I'm going to come back with a piece of, this is a piece of scrap steel angle. This is 2 by 2. I'm going to use 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. But to give you an idea, this is a pain in the ass doing this by yourself. This is going to be put along the bottom of your square tube, of the bottom of it, except I'm going to space it down 1/4 inch. So the lip, the flange that goes around this removable panel will sit in that 1/4 inch gap. So it always goes back in the same spot and you're not fighting it to get the trim to line up and the bolt holes to line up. That'll be your other registered fit. So, it goes like that. That'll go all the way around. See the left side, the front, and the right side. Also, underneath this piece of angle I just held up, is I've got your LED ribbon lighting that'll light up your stainless steel toe kick. And I'll show you all that in another video.